On New Year's Eve, we were all gathered together, ringing in 2025, joy and celebration. But if you were in New Orleans, a nightmare was unfolding. 14 people were killed, 35 were injured, and America was reminded of an uncomfortable truth. Terrorism knows no borders. The perpetrator was not a stranger from foreign land, but a Texas-born Army veteran, radicalized and driven by hate. Now, I want to talk about this because I think perspective is so important. You know these stories, hopefully, maybe not, but you know these stories, but I want to give you the important perspective. And the theme of today's show really is truth above all things. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Now, we have to retrace his steps a bit. It's not a story about this guy that, going into radicalism. It's how we as a nation have allowed our vulnerabilities to grow unchecked. And if we don't change right now, more tragedies are going to follow. So most of this guy's life, unremarkable. Born and raised Houston, Texas, joined the Army in 2007. He served as a human resource specialist, later as an IT specialist. He was deployed to Afghanistan from 2009 and 2010. It was administrative. He was far from the battlefield, but his access gave him, a look into the military world and perhaps a view of America's enemies that would later feed his radicalization. By 2023, he was no longer a friend to his family and his friends. He traveled to Egypt. At some point that year, he joined ISIS. There's a chilling video of him, a message to his family where he pledged allegiance to the terror group and expressed his desire to kill his family. He ultimately chose not to harm his loved ones, but he was consumed by hatred in this ideology. So the first lesson here is it doesn't happen overnight. Second lesson is, how did this guy get back into the country? This is a slow burn, but it's often in plain sight. Vigilance is what we need, not just from law enforcement, but from family, friends, and community. Because if we can understand how people like Jabbar can fall into darkness, we may be able to stop the next tragedy before it begins. So in October of 2024, just last October, he visited New Orleans. He was scouting. He used Meta smart glasses, cutting-edge technology designed for everyday convenience. He used those to map out the French Quarter and plan his attack with meticulous precision. Side note, just an asterisk here, I want you to remember for what I'm going to talk to you about next hour. This is technology meant to improve our lives, turned into a tool of terror. All right, fast forward, New Year's Eve. He rents a house in New Orleans, packs his truck with an ISIS flag, drives into the heart of the city. He had two ways of destruction. He was first going to just mow over people, and then he was going to set off an explosive device, extraordinarily rare explosive compound, one that has never been used in the U.S. or in Europe. We don't know where he got it. How did it get here? We don't even know what it is. The government does. The bombs were hidden in coolers and rigged with a transmitter that were placed on Bourbon Street. Thankfully, they didn't detonate. Either he didn't trigger the bomb or police killed him before he could. Around 3 a.m., he carried out his primary attack. He was driving a rented Ford F-150, plowed through the crowd, leaving death and chaos in his wake. 14 lives were lost, 35 others forever changed. And we had another terrorist attack, the first of 2025. Now, the FBI said, this isn't a terrorist attack. The lady with the nose ring, go away. You have no credibility. This so-called lone wolf is part of a growing pattern. German Christmas market attack, the London Bridge stabbings, it's now here on American soil. But let's not ignore the bigger picture. While he may have acted alone in execution, everything leading up to it was not an isolated process. His story also raises uncomfortable questions about our preparedness for terrorism in 2025. How did a Texas-born Army veteran become radicalized under the noses of everybody in his community? How did he acquire the knowledge to build a sophisticated bomb? How many more are like him? How many are homegrown? How many have we imported over our border? So let's start with the border security. Something that we must demand is taken seriously by Congress. Critics of current immigration policies argue that porous borders could allow terrorists to slip into the country undetected. Right. But he was a citizen. Terror groups do not care about borders, and neither should we when it comes to national security. We need a system that welcomes people who seek a better life while stopping, jailing, or killing, if we have to, the ones who want to exploit our goodwill and blow us up. There's another question. Technology. The smart glasses from Meta. He used those to plan his attack, but he also used social media to pledge his allegiance to ISIS. So how do we balance this innovation with security? The reason why I wanted to bring this up today is it's more than just a tragic event. It's a warning. It reveals the cracks in our systems, the complacency that allows those cracks to widen, our borders, our political correctness. This story is important because it forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about our safety, our priorities, and our policies. You might think, oh, well, it's New Orleans. It's not my town. The reality is terror doesn't discriminate. It could happen anywhere. A Christmas parade in Wisconsin, a concert in Las Vegas, a marathon in Boston. The first thing our Congress and our new president must address is the corruption that has happened in our Department of Justice. How could this FBI agent with the nose ring come out and say immediately this wasn't a terrorist attack? The guy had an ISIS flag in his truck. How could that happen? It's a new kind of policing. She's obviously a part of this new DEI bullcrap that has been passed on. All of the political correctness now down to that level, the special agent in charge in New Orleans. That has to be stopped. We have to stop being politically incorrect and saying that, Islam is fine. No. Islamicists are not fine. And you will find Islamicists in many of the groups of Islam. Doesn't make Islam the problem. It makes people who say, I take the Quran word for word and it needs to be law in every country. No, those are the ones causing the problems. No, we cannot allow our country to become like Europe. Europe, gang, is over. It's a matter of time. If they don't change course radically in this year, you will not recognize Europe anymore. This year has to be a year of total and complete change.